And today I have such a beautiful guest, and I want to welcome you into this new light living world of ours. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It is completely my pleasure to be here. I'm just grateful for this chance to have a nice chat with you.
Yes, I'm excited. And so just to kick this off, I would love for you to share with all of our listeners who you are and what you do.
Wow, that seems like such a simple question, but it feels so difficult to answer. Right now, the work I'm doing in the world is kind of showing up to tell this story that I've been navigating for the past 10 years or so of my life. So after the birth of my youngest daughter, I started to have these health issues that I couldn't really ignore any longer, and that led to this like winding road of autoimmune disease diagnosis and treatment, until at one point I had sort of given away all my power to people with MD after their name. uh, and finally, after I was taking like 9 different prescription medications 3 times a day, I started just slowly taking back my own power, one bit at a time. So I was working on controlling my nutrition, moving my body, eliminating toxicities in my environment, the products I used. And then finally, a conversation with my rheumatologist led me to thinking that if I stepped away from my job, I had this 14-year career in classroom teaching, thinking if I left that, that would be like the magic bullet, right? No more stress in my life, solve all my problems. And it wasn't until after that that I found myself in this really deep, dark place, just still sick, still tired, tried everything I knew I could do, and now just in this emotionally hopeless place and not really wanting to go on. So the work I've done since then has just been to claw myself out of that hole, hoping to break cycles and not start new ones for my own family, and never really get back there again. Right? That was the hope, and so that's led me here to this conversation with you.
You are such an inspiration, and I have the feeling that a lot of us right now, either it's illness or whether it's a some other kind of struggle that we're in. This conversation with you, just saying that this transformation you've gone through is possible, and
Mm.
here you are. So
Ah.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that with us, because that is really what we're going to talk about today, about how to release a struggle, release a trauma, and
Mm.
really heal from that. And that healing, it can look different, obviously, for many. But today we're going to hear your story and your wisdom that you have
Mm.
gathered along the way.
Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, that's the greater hope, obviously, of sharing my story. And the more I've been open in sharing it and what I'm going through, that was a process in and of itself. But the more I realize that so many of us, uh, diagnosis or not, that's not required, are tired or burned out or sick or just searching for answers and not knowing what the next step is. And so, yeah, I think like, it can't be any more clear than through sharing this story that there are many, many people that have been in the same position that I have been in, for sure.
Yeah. And if we go a little bit deeper on that, I mean, obviously, in the times we're living in, this is very relevant on how we're coming back to a life that we love. But when it comes to releasing, whether it's illness like it was in your case or any other struggle, tell us a little bit about your perspective of how why is this relevant to even talk about
Mm.
right now?
Well, for me, I was continually searching for this magic bullet, right? What's going to be the one thing that solves all the problems and allows me to heal in the way I wanted to heal? And at the beginning of that um, fruitless search, I was definitely thinking like the diagnosis, that'll be the thing that solves all the problems, right? The correct prescription medication, that'll be the right thing that solves all the problems. And then, like I said, it would be food or whatever the one thing I was so focused on, that's what it would be. And these are, if you do Google searches, these are common answers that will come up for the things that will solve your problems, right? um, but for me, none of that really worked until I got to the deeper emotional stuff that was going on. And so even when I was in that low, dark place, I was still in pain and I was searching for ways to release this physical pain. And it became still a superficial fix, right? I needed a probiotic because I was learning about this gut connection to my overall health, which, by the way, is very valid. All of these things are great when used appropriately and together. But for me, I go into this chiropractor's office. I think I would feel more comfortable calling her a healer now, but I live in this very rural place. Chiropractor is an accessible term. And I just said, I need a probiotic, recommend a probiotic. I was overwhelmed by all the choices, had no idea what to do. And she saw through that and eventually started doing this somatic work and some energy work with me that my pragmatic self at the time was like, oh, this is crazy. I went out searching for like people to tell me, no, that's crazy, don't do it, right? So I went to my husband, a good friend. I was like, this is what she wants to do, can you believe it? And they were like, why wouldn't you do it? You've tried everything else, just give it a shot. So just out of effort of like checking boxes, I went back to her and continued to work with her. And over time, which in a relative perspective was a short amount of time compared to, like I'd been working through this for about 7 years at that point. And over the course of a few months, I started to feel this physical pain uh, in my body that I had held for years leave. So I couldn't raise my arms above a certain point. I couldn't put a shirt on. I couldn't do my hair. I held this pain in my thighs, and that started to lessen and eventually leave. And I couldn't deny this connection anymore between my emotional self and my physical self. And all the work wasn't done there in her office. It just kind of pointed the way to the rest of the work that needed to be done. And so for me, there wasn't a magic bullet, but there was no healing until I got to this deeper, repressed emotional part of myself, this trauma that I had never dug into or dealt with. And then these other things could be used together in a way to heal, I think.
Oh, what a beautiful example of going within,
Mm.
and being also finding somebody that actually could support you in that endeavor of unlocking the energy that was stuck inside. I mean, that's very common, right? That we were looking for this external answer, and quite rarely we find the answer in the external world, or whether it's medication or things that we buy, or that we want to seek the support from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's a beautiful example that you were guided likely to find this beautiful person that could help you unlock and release. So what has been the best thing for you that has come out of working and working this way? Because I think there might be listeners here that also want, maybe in a similar situation, that may have looked into every single option, whether it's, and feel stuck,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's illness or anything else, but haven't really tapped into yet the emotional world of healing.
Mhm. I always want to have like this brief, succinct answer to these
Mhm.
questions, right? But it never works that way. So, um, and everything you said just reminds me that not at the time, but now in retrospect, there are all these synchronicities that were happening at the same time as me going to see this chiropractor and her doing that work, right? And so, I mean, now in retrospect, I can see definitely I was led. I was led to her and I was led to all these other things at the same time. I was reading Brene Brown and learning how to release shame or even identify it. I read um, or listened to Glennon Doyle about, and that helped me realize that I had used these coping mechanisms, almost like an addiction. For me, very like socially acceptable ones, perfectionism and people pleasing. And so doing that kind of learning and work at the same time that I was seeing the chiropractor um, helped me realize that number one, I didn't really know myself or my true nature. I hadn't really allowed that kind of intuition or allowed myself to tap into that or be that because I had clothed myself in perfectionism and people pleasing. So I got really good by that point in my life at being what I thought other people wanted me to be and showing up in that way. And doing that allowed me to never deal with this deeper pain. I thought it made it forgettable, right? Like I just left it behind. But what I had really done was lock it away deeper. And I know that now. At the time, it was not nearly as obvious. So none of what I did to heal could be used in a loving, healing way until I was able to identify those coping mechanisms and start to peel them back. So even using food became a way to over perfect, over control, to please until I realized until I became conscious of that's what I was doing, right? Almost over controlling it. Moving my body became over controlling, almost punishing, just overdoing it. And so once I was able to realize what I had surrounded myself in out of this false sense of protection, keeping people at arm's length, ignoring the pain that I was in, I couldn't really use any of this stuff to heal. So I would say that consciousness, that awareness, and definitely the first bit of that awareness was this opening that the chiropractor allowed me to see between my physical pain and my body and these points throughout my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And can you give us like a scene of how it was for you before you started that process or journey, if you will, and let's say how you either felt or what you could do when you were out of the woodwork, so to say, just to kind of give a visual,
Mhm.
an example from your life.
So before I became aware of all of this and I was still
Mhm.
feeling sick,
Yeah.
sure. So for me, it meant like uh, hustling, grinding, right? Like this American dream. So just like get a good job with a good pension, put my head down, push through until I like someone said I could retire and then I would live the life I wanted to live and not really even understanding what that life would be or what I wanted. So I I would, get up and try to be the perfect mom and get out of the door on time, get to work early because that's what a perfect person would do. Um, and just really bust it at work and try to be everything to everyone. And then come home and try to be everything to everyone in my house, which didn't work, by the way. I was never perfect. I never really believed I was, but this was just this illusion I tried to control other people with their perception of me. And so it also meant like never really asking myself what I needed or wanted because I just wanted to be what other people needed or wanted. Another form of like false control. And so after I was able to unpack that and go through this healing, which I'm still working on, right? I think we've had this conversation before, you and I. There's no arriving, right? I'm still going through this, but um man, I try as often as I can to just show up and be real, number 1, whether that means being vulnerable and super uncomfortable, but just be real. And number 2, really love and care for myself as a soul in this body. Um, Validate my own intuition, my own worth, and know that in doing so, I can show up for others in the way that I probably always wanted to, but became more of like a martyr or this false sense of showing up for people in the beginning. So all that's to say, at that time, going back 10 years in my life, there was a lot of physical pain, discomfort, sickness that I just pretended away or denied or had hushed conversations about. Um, Whereas now I feel so much lighter and free, and there's still work to do, right? But I try not to have those hushed kind of conversations anymore, not to hide anything or shame things away. Um, and the physical health and the dis-ease in my body, the illness, it still presents itself every once in a while, but for the most part, um, man, I can't ask for a lot more than what I have from my body right now.
Oh, it's so wonderful to thank you for giving us that vision of to me it just came as a massive shift, not only how you experienced yourself but also experienced your life in general. And that's so powerful to hear that, you know, with one initiation of a modality like energy healing, or in your case there were sequence of events obviously,
Mhm.
but that it can be a life-changing experience coming out of that.
Mhm.
And just by hearing your journey, it's I understand that we always want to achieve something that somebody else told us that we needed to be, right?
Mhm.
But in your case and in many others cases, it's like that definition becomes now something that comes from the inside.
Mm.
And that's a lovely way of describing it the way you did.
Thank you. Yeah, it makes it so clear that um something internal, right? Like happiness or joy or just peace will never come from something outside. Um And so I think I haven't been a someone who learns easily. I've learned that over and over, right? But no house or no car or no amount of money or no love from someone outside will ever give me what I'm searching for inside. At first I just did the work for my daughters, right? I couldn't find the worthiness in myself. So it was like, oh, I can't be this mom for them. I have to be better. But the farther I went down that path, the more I could find that in myself. And I know now that when I have that internally, it spills over to the people I care about, right? But it took kind of a backwards step to get there for sure.
So having said all of that, and there's so much wisdom in your journey there, and what would you say, what are some of the resources that have been most helpful to you? Just to give a couple of examples of resources or modalities, or you described a few things, but
Mhm.
this is for somebody that is listening today or watching this who is in a similar situation, and it's like, where do I start?
Yeah,
Right.
right. Yeah. So I have to say the first just tiny step for me was trying meditation. And that was again very superficial, like checking a box. I read a book called The Miracle Morning and I wanted to do that like 1, 2, 3, 4. Wanted to get it all done. And so maybe I could sit for 4 minutes if I was lucky when I started. But that was the first bit of like just a creep in of awareness, and learning to be present, and understanding how much I was like in the past, in regret and shame and all of that, and how much I was in the future of just like worry and fear. And then um reading The Untethered Soul for me was the next. Have you read that book, Michael Singer?
Yes.
So yeah, that was kind of like the next step to awareness. And I truly believe like awareness is really all we have. And so once we go there, we can access our intuition and follow the next step, right? And understand the stories we're telling ourselves. And so I would say those were the first two very pivotal points. And then I guess, I talked about Brene Brown and Glennon Doyle. And then farther down the road, I was led to the works of Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score, and Gabor Mate, When the Body Says No. And so those just validated this, what can appear to be mystical, magical, and certainly is. Like there's so much of that in this healing. This mystical, magical process of the mind and the body working together, and really shows like scientifically the hormonal chemical reaction of the two, and how that causes chronic illness or chronic diseases, right? And finally, I will stop soon. There was a book called Expressive Writing, and it's talking about using journaling to heal. And that sort of gave me permission to just spill it all out on the page. And also references a lot of scientific data about repressed trauma, repressed emotions, never talking with anyone or writing about it, and the effects on our body. And also talks about how just doing this journaling practice they talk about in the book can be as effective or more effective than seeing a counselor or a psychologist. So I'm not either of those things, and I'm not a doctor. I don't want to tell people to not do that. That was not my path to go to a professional. But certainly these things I've talked about have helped me for sure. So.
Oh, I love every single book and practice that you just mentioned. And
Oh.
I witnessed myself working with many that all of these tools are so powerful, and not only by itself, but actually taken together and done as it's almost like the effect of a catalyst when all of these tools are practiced, especially the journaling and so on. So that's beautiful. Thank you for giving us that reminder that this is life-changing tools. And we have heard about journaling and things like that, but it changes lives. Mm-hmm. I love that. And so what can you share something about what you do for yourself today when it comes to healing practices, and this was a few years ago, but you have evolved also into, and maybe some have floated away and some new ones have come in, but what is it that really has stuck with you?
Yeah, I do try to have a practice, and just out of transparency, I'm not able to do it 7 days a week, but I try to hit 4 a week, and I feel like that keeps me above water, keeps me moving forward. And so for me, that is moving my body, getting my heart rate up, outside as often as I can, um, meditating, praying, some kind of journaling. So I don't always release a lot, but in my journaling, I try to show love for myself or my body in some way, write some affirmations, and write down any inspiration I'm finding. Making sure I journal inspiration helps me to be more focused and positive when I might be in some place like social media or watching something. My eyes are always looking for how to be inspired, right? Instead of like comparing, or it helps me unfollow things that are uninspiring or make me feel low. Um, and now that I have sort of unpacked this perfectionism, people pleasing tendency, I'm able to much more often use food in a loving way to nurture and care for my body. And so I'm working a lot more with being less restrictive and more intuitive about the food that I eat and the way I move my body in that way. And as often as I can, I take nice long hot baths, and I try to get to bed early and get to, so that I can get up when I need to be able to do all of those things. So that's the general practice that really helps me right now.
Mm. Yeah. And it sounds also like that your routines and things that you love doing has stuck,
Mhm.
and some other things may have been having an effect at the time, but yeah, and it's beautiful to witness that, it is such an important part to actually just dedicate time to ourselves
Mhm.
and what we love and what our body and that body mind spirit connection uh, can do for us when it's kept alive, and not kind of, oh, we'll do it for a week and then put it in
Yeah.
the drawer, right? But that consistent attention and love, because it really is self-love that comes out of all of this, right?
Mhm.
That nurtures our well-being. So I love everything you do about
Mm.
about it. um Here's a question that I have been you know having gone through the journey that you have. What would you say is some indicator of when someone is healed? Because healing is a very personal journey, obviously, and
Mhm.
it can only be experienced by each individual as such. But many questions come up sometimes, like, when do I know I have changed, or when do I know I have healed? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, that's a tough question. And I'm sure everyone might answer it a little differently. I do feel like I need to say that um as far as my physical body goes, I still have a few specialists that are medical doctors of Western medicine, and I am grateful for them. They help me to keep, my immune system under control and check in on my body. I have lung and heart disease, and they help monitor that and make sure that's okay. I have a couple of immunosuppressants that I still require to keep my immune system regulated and functioning healthfully. And I've learned to be grateful for those things. At times, I think like, oh, I'm healed. I should stop taking this. And so I've tried that too. But they encourage me to stay on track there. I have a cardiologist that is the most recent doctor that I've acquired. And when I first saw him, he wrote several prescriptions for me. And I kind of rolled my eyes inside when he sat down to do that. Um, but he got a piece of paper, and the four things he wrote, the first one was nutrition. And I had never had a doctor out of all the years like recommend that I do something for my body with nutrition.
Mm.
I had just worked on that on my own. And so he recommended a plant-based vegan diet. Um, and the second one he wrote was like exercise. And so he recommended, moving for 30 minutes a day, at least getting your heart rate up, which again was a bit of surprise because of the heart disease I was seeing him for. A lot of people end up being sedentary. Um, and then the third thing he wrote was mental health. And he stopped and looked at me, and he looked me in the eye and he said, I don't just mean like do yoga or meditate. I mean, find your rug, pick up the rug, and sweep everything out from under the rug. And that just sort of validated what I was doing and encouraged me to keep going. And the last one he wrote was love and connection, which again, there's so much research for a lack of that or loneliness and our long term health. And so I say that to say that I feel like all of these things work in conjunction for me to feel healed,
Mm.
right? So, by someone's technical term, I may not be healed. But for me, I know now that a doctor's diagnosis isn't necessarily even the truth or my truth. Um, and I know how to love and nurture and care for myself so that long term, whatever happens with my physical body does not happen with my soul or my spirit. Right. And so I feel healthy most days. I feel healed most of the time. And sometimes there's something that triggers something in me emotionally that sort of causes some regression. And because I have that practice, I know how to get back to where I was before. And I'm learning to trust that I can get back there. And sometimes that emotional regression triggers something in my physical body. But because I have that practice, I know how to get back. And I'm learning to trust that I can get back to health. And so for me, that's healing. And just knowing, again, there's no arriving, and through awareness and consciousness, I can keep working toward the next step of my own health and healing. And hopefully that can spill over and help those that are, I'm in relationship with too.
Oh, what a beautiful share, Debbie.
Ah, thank you.
It's just heartwarming to see, and that doctor is obviously a keeper, you know,
Yeah.
with his recommendations, and you were right along, already kind of down those paths. But it's that summary you gave of how you're healing, what that means to you today, is just such a great reminder of all the different things that needs to come together and being emphasized. And I just love, and you're such an inspiration that have made such a turnaround in your life, and now you're sharing and inspires others. So what kind of recommendations, if you had three tips for somebody that is listening today or watching today, what would you recommend?
Um, so they're all free. And I would say first one is awareness. So just beginning to be the noticer, just the observer without judgment of the thought patterns, stories, routines, habits that you're going through, that your mind is telling you, filling up space with, or you go through about your day. So just noticing them without trying to change or suppress or get rid of them quickly. And once you're able to do that, um, I think the next step is being able to detach, right? So for me, detachment meant like, I am not my pain. I am not my diagnosis. I am not my um, body. I am not my mom. I am not my dad. Extension of that, right? I'm not even my daughters or my husband or the roles I play. And for some people, maybe it's more like, I am not my car. I am not my house. I am not these kinds of things we think will bring us happiness or worth. And when you're able to detach from that, hopefully, third step, I think, is accessing your own inner wisdom of what you value, what you truly want or seek out of life, apart from what other people may tell you or you may think, based on society or what's common, and then trust your intuition to lead you and guide you to that. So
Oh,
hopefully that helps. I don't know.
yes, no, thank you for that. And you have also, I wanted to mention that Debbie has written a beautiful book
Mm.
about your journey. Tell us the title of the book, of course, and a little bit about the book itself.
Sure, thank you. It's called The Other Side of Perfect: Discovering the Mind-Body Connection to Healing Chronic Illness. And it's really about everything we've been talking about. And it was a way for me to heal and hopefully help others do the same. Just takes the reader back through, maybe where all of this began and how I was able to access that and learn to heal from it. And there are some journal prompts in there to hopefully help the reader heal in their own way, uniquely as they go through it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, such a beautiful book. And where can we find you? Because I know there would be people that may be curious of learning more about you and your journey, and maybe finding your book. And so where can we connect with you?
Thank you. So, the book is available anywhere really that books are sold online. And so, if you can get it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or Walmart. If you want to, there are several online sources for like independent book publishers, authors, and sales that way. And so you can go through one of those indie sites and get it that way too. Or you can go to gobucketyourself.com/books. And there are some links there to help you find it. And also, I wrote a 30-day companion journal that you can find there as well to help you go along through this healing journey with some bonuses and extras in it. And if you want to just reach out and connect, you can email me at gobucketyourself.com, or I'm on Instagram under imperfectprogress.me. So I am perfectprogress.me. I'd love to hear from you, help you, support you in any way I can.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, let's all connect with Debbie and get her book.
Oh, thank
I
you.
want to wrap this up, this beautiful conversation with so much wisdom in it. I want to wrap it up with a question to you, Debbie. And that would be, what is something that you live by?
Oh, wow. Um, so the first thing really that's coming up for me now is something a friend just sent me uh, after she read the book, and she said this kind of spoke to her. And it's not compromising integrity for ease, right? So I think when I was people pleasing and perfecting, um, I wasn't outwardly thinking or aware of maybe compromising myself in a way to make things easier or smoother. Um, and so now just really showing up as I really truly am, whether that feels awkward or vulnerable or hard or uncomfortable sometimes, the gifts that have come from that, the true deep connections with myself and with others that have come from that have been worth it for sure.
Mm. Oh, so good. Thank you, Debbie, for sharing yourself so generously today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ulrika. It's so nice to get to know you and have this conversation. I really appreciate the space and the time.